audio to prevent noise. And next, please use your own personal identity or your full name on your Zoom profile. So if you please rename your Zoom profile if you use your handphones. And the next is if you have questions, please write down in the Q&A feature or you can raise your hand using Zoom. And next is e-certificates are only given to the participant who attend the webinar until the end. And the chat room is only allowed for communication about the materials, the topics, the questions, ideas, opinions, or other suggestions. And e-certificates and material links will be shared at the end at this webinar. And e-certificates are only given to the participant who fill the webinar questionnaire form. Yeah, webinar feedback questionnaire form. And your time is only about 30 minutes after the end of this webinar. So uh, please notice this do and don't during webinar. And let's start to our webinar sessions. And the first agenda of our webinar today is opening remarks or welcome speech by the head of Management Department, Faculty of Economics, Universitas Sriwijaya, Mrs. Isni Andriana, MPhil PhD. To Mrs. Isni Andriana, MPhil PhD, the time is yours. Please welcome.
Thank you, host. We meet again, Dr. Benedict. Assalamualaikum. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. My colleagues also there. First of all, let me say how pleased I am to see so many of you, especially the doctorate candidates here in economic faculty, Universitas Sriwijaya, for us together here in this second webinar. Your presence here actually is a reflection of your interest in this webinar, and I am convinced that the presence of all of you will contribute to the value of discussion with our speakers. My presence here represents the Dean of Economic Faculty, Universitas Sriwijaya, who was unable to join us today due to the meeting at the same time with this webinar. So today we have with us a speaker whom I have no hesitation in describing as exceptional, and it is honor for me to welcome Dr. Benedict Valentine Arulandam, PhD from Sunway College, Malaysia. Welcome back, Doctor. And we are delighted and honored to host the second international webinar about how to improve research capabilities and publish it in a reputable international journal. It is organized as a part of event of the International Webinar in Economics Faculty, Universitas Sriwijaya. This webinar is principally designed to enhance our skill in the research publication field. This webinar is one of the important steps to develop our skill in the research and publication, especially during the COVID-19 pandemic period. In closing, I wish to express my gratitude to all participants for their full cooperation and contribution for the second webinar. I take this opportunity to thank to the speaker and the organizer. I wish you have a very fruitful and productive webinar. Thank you very much. Wabillahi taufiq wal hidayah. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Thank you, host. Back to you. Host speaker, please. Your speaker is unmute.
Okay, thank you for Mrs. Isni Andriana, MPhil PhD, for welcoming speech to this international webinar search number 2. And the next session of our webinar today is we can continue our webinar sessions. And this webinar session will be delivered by Mr. Dr. Muhammad Iksan Hajri MM For your information, he is an assistant professor of Faculty of Economics, Universitas Sriwijaya. He had experience as speaker and moderator for several international conferences, and he ever got 3 awards as the winner of Best Paper Awards in international conferences in USA, Russia, and South Korea. So please welcome Mr. Dr. Muhammad Iksan Hadri MM. Time is yours.
Thank you so much for the host, Miss Lina Dameria Siregar. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. To our distinguished speaker, Dr. Benedict Valentin Arulananda, PhD from Sunway College, Malaysia, the Honorable Head of Department of Management, Faculty of Economic University Sriwijaya, Mrs. Isni Adriana, MPhil, PhD, the Honorable Host and MC of our event, Mrs. Lina Dameria Siregar, MM, and our warm welcome to all participants. First of all, we'd like to thank you for gathering here in this platform and welcome to the International Webinar Series number 2 with the topic How to Improve Research Capabilities and Publish it in Reputable International Journals. We hope with attending this scientific webinar will be great opportunity to learning and sharing about how to improve research capabilities and publish it in international journals. It is very great experience and opportunity for all the participants. For the participant who wants to ask a question, can write in the chat room or raise hand in the Zoom platform. Ladies and gentlemen, we have one honorable speaker for this session. I will read a short bio of our speaker. Our speaker is Dr. Benedict Valentin Arulananda, PhD, has been in the Malaysian corporate arena for more than 2 decades, spanning from manufacturing, education, biotechnology, and banking industry. In the academic field, he has close to 12 years of experience conducting lectures and seminars. From a humble beginning, Dr. Benedict completed his degree from the United Kingdom and by God's grace completed his master in finance from Australia, University of Southern Queensland, while working in the corporate sector. While serving as an invited speaker with the University of Syracuse MBA visits to Malaysia, Dr. Benedict identified his calling in the field of academics. Hence, he embarked upon the Doctor of Philosophy or PhD with University Putra Malaysia, Putra Business School. While serving with a local bank in the capacity of a head of department, Dr. Benedict completed his PhD in the field management and finance. Dr. Benedict now serves as a senior lecturer in the Victoria University Melbourne undergraduate program with the Sunway Education Group in Selangor, Malaysia. Apart from his publications, Dr. Benedict has also co-authored several manuals on finance planning, conduct talk on finance management and taxation in several institutions of higher learning in Malaysia. He also presents paper in international conference. In 2017, he was one of the recipients of the Harvard Travel Grant, award by Jeffrey Cheh Institute on Southeast Asia with Harvard University, Boston, USA. He is also a member of Athener, Athens Institute of Education and Research, Greece. Dr. Benedict possesses strong leadership, excellent problem-solving skill, effective team building know-how, and good project management attributes. He has special interest in financial management, financial literacy, corporate governance or ethics, corporate anthropology, economic sustainability, leadership, and corporate social responsibility.
For Dr. Benedict, you can start your public speech.
Yes. Yeah. Right. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you very much for this warm welcome. Thank you for Dr. Isni, Dr. Mohammad Ishan. Thank you so much. I'm so happy. I'm so humbled to be here and facing a number of you are doing PhD. Thank you so much for availing your time. I know you are busy people reading and doing a lot of research. So thank you. Thank you so much. And and it's so nice, you know, we thank God for this technology. Although we are about thousands of kilometers away, we are still able to meet but on a virtual basis. So thank you. So can you hear me? Is it loud and clear? It's loud and clear. Yeah, great, great, awesome. So let me fish out my slides. Yeah. Yes, right. Is that clear? Is that clear? Can somebody tell me, is it clear, the slides?
Yes, yes, yes,
Okay,
doctor.
great,
Yes, doctor.
great,
Yes.
great, awesome. Yes, awesome. Thank you, thank you. Thank you very much again. Today's topic is how to improve research capabilities and publish in reputable international journal, right? So let me start off. I have only about 11 slides. The reason is because I want this to be a very interactive session, yeah? Because you are PhD scholars, so you need to ask questions, you need to be very much interactive and sorry, and also please don't feel shy, right? There's nothing to be shy. We all are here to learn. Yeah, we are here to learn. It's better to make mistakes now than to make mistakes during your presentation of your viva. So don't worry about anything. Yeah, we are here to learn. Now right, so therefore it is a small step but a giant leap. So whatever research that you are doing, it can be a small step. It can be something very small. Maybe you feel it's insignificant, but nevertheless, it is a giant leap for mankind, right? It's a giant leap. Now, factors contributing, right, to the, for example, the wrong research culture, right? Factors contributing to the wrong research culture and to a poor research culture. The first thing is blind adoption. That means to say that you just jump into a research culture just to finish your PhD and that's it. Like I said in the first session, it is not coming from the heart. But then you may say, look, I've gone through the journey of masters. So for me, I'm doing my PhD. Are you telling me I'm not doing it from my heart? In fact, you'll be very surprised. Many of I sit in the board of PhD in some universities, and I noticed that there are some students just want to fulfill the PhD because it's a requirement by the university to have a PhD, so they jump on the wagon, right? So sometimes it's a blind adoption, yeah. And the moment you come into a research, it must come from the heart. Whatever research that you do, it must come from the heart. And it is important. Why? Because whatever that we are doing, we are not doing to bless ourselves, but more important to the community. We are giving some positive feedback to whichever community of research that we belong to. Perhaps you are doing a research on banking, so you're contributing to the banking sector. If you're doing a research on fishing villages, you're contributing to the fishing villages. So every research is a powerful instrument. You cannot look at research as something like, and that is the problem. That is the problem with many universities in Asia. They look at research as, nothing much, sideline, but then research contributes to the body of knowledge in an immense manner. And furthermore, research opens new avenues and it discovers the undiscovered. A good example, we thought our learning pattern is very effective. When you do research, then we realize that, look, Actually, students are not interested in our learning pattern. We are using old methodologies. So what happened? We were to have to change our methodology. So therefore, whether an institution changes methodology in respect of the research findings or not, but basically it is a finding. And that is where many institutions make mistake. They don't appreciate, although they are institution, although they are academic institution, but they don't appreciate the findings of research. They have this, what you call in many parts of the world, the condemning spirit. They like to condemn, everything like to condemn. Never look at things on a positive manner. So how are you going to encourage your fellow academics to do research? If institutions are just looking at revenue, student number, that's it. Research, take a back step. That is not a correct adoption, because there is a connection between academic and industry. I'll come to that in a moment. Poor ecosystem to research, to support research. Some institutions don't have proper database for journals. They say it's a cost factor. We don't have money, right? Let them do a Google search. But that you are not giving the support to increase quality. So the depth of your research is very minimal. And how are you going to be useful for the society if you do not embrace proper research culture? And then they don't have the support in terms of supervisory or the proper examination mode and the proper style of doing the research. The entire ecosystem has to be revisited, because in actual fact, every research must contribute to the community. Why are you doing the research? It can help a community. It can make lives better. I'm studying about the consumer behavior during COVID. How does it going to be applicable to the next time where there is a pandemic? No, this pandemic is not going to end. There'll be another pandemic after a few years, another pandemic after a few years. So how do you know this will be? So therefore, you have to basically look at the entire ecosystem. And that means the cooperation of not only lecturers, not only students, but also the institution, and also the bridging the gap between institution and also the industry. Coming to my third point, right? You find that many times you find that academics are just like, generalists. They are not considered as specialists. Actually, the academics play an important role in the development of a nation. Any research, like in Western countries, many of these, in fact, universities collaborate with industries. They collaborate so that any problem faced by the industry, they're able to research and find the solution to that problem. So there is a hand-in-hand approach between the industry and the university. Of course, the funding comes from the industry to do the research. This means what? This means a better collaboration. This means your research is applicable and applied research. In other words, it goes hand in hand. In Asia, many a time, many places, you find that there is a separation between industry and institution. Whatever the research institution does, the industry doesn't know about, or even in the industry don't care about. This is where you find the separation. So when there's a separation, academics can go on doing research. Even after you finish your PhD, you can go on doing research, but it's of no use. Why? Because there is no collaboration. And that is important, to establish a collaboration. Why? In terms of even funding, at least the industry can fund the particular research, because let's face it, sometimes you need funds. Like, for example, I did a research in Cambodia among villages on financial literacy and also microfinancing. We got to at least cover the cost of the data collectors to go into the village. And to go into the village, they got to cross a river, hire a boat, they take a bicycle and hire a bicycle to cycle into the village. and the village from the place where the river is about 10 kilometers away. So for that, you need to at least cover such costs. And when these data collectors go into the village, you have to at least pay them for their meals, right? Meals, but all these are basic costs. So thank God that I had a US NGO to help in supporting this. So therefore, the collaboration must be there. When the collaboration is there, you find that the research makes meaning, and people who are connected to the research will be encouraged. Right. Right. You'll find that institutions today are much more involved in training and teaching rather than doing research. They said, no, research doesn't really help us, research only helps out a few members of the academics, those who are interested. It really do not help. Actually, they are wrong. Because from research, you'll be able to find improvement for the entire institution. And that is crucial. And that's where we have to have the encouraging spirit, the spirit of to be positive in whatever that we do. Right. And the other one is incentive. Right. Sometimes you find because of this COVID-19, you find that institutions and companies are cutting cost. Cutting cost. Because when they cut costs now, nobody will ask any question because it's COVID-19. Well, I always come back to them and say, what happened to your retained earnings? You're supposed to have retained earnings, isn't it? So what happened to your retained earnings? Why are you not helping in terms of research? Right? So, and then lack of intellectual discourse. Because there's no one to properly debate that particular data findings. There's no one to analyze properly. So because of lack of intellectual discourse, institutions now are, some of them are having a poor research culture. A myopic view, that means a very narrow view of research, right? In fact, whatever that we do now is because of research. Even when we drink pure water, how this pure water came is because of research. Somebody spent time, somebody sacrificed to find pure water. And you and I are enjoying today pure water, and we are taking things for granted. Actually, there is a research behind that. So everything that we do, there is a research. So we got to appreciate research, right? And we have to encourage our students to do research. And I'm very happy some degree program, they already introduced a module on research in some universities, which is important. Even in degree level, even in undergraduate level, there is research element. A study in 1977 by Chosudovsky says that much research do not have the originality. Why? Because if you were to look carefully, much of our research are adopted from the Western world. Nothing wrong, but sometimes we got to contextualize it within our context. And each of our contexts are different. The context in Malaysia is different from the context in Indonesia, right? So we got to sort of look at it from the contextual point of view. And we find that there's a lot of Western patterns, which is fine. But the question is, we cannot use their findings and say, there you are. But we can use it as a comparative study, yes. But not so much that that's the way. For example, I did a study on corporate governance. I was just sharing with just now. And we are adopting a Western world of corporate governance structure. Whereas our Asian adoption of corporate governance is different. So, for example, a simple definition. The definition of corruption in the Western world differs from the definition of corruption in Asian context. So therefore, your corporate governance now, I'm not saying that corruption is okay. No, it's not. It's wrong. It's by all ethical standards wrong. But the interpretation, for example, I'm taking somebody for dinner just to build friendship. Do you consider that as corruption? Whereas in the Western world, they may think is corruption. Not that they are wrong, but the context is different, right? So therefore, It is a culture. For example, when somebody comes and visits you in the office, you offer them a cup of tea. Does that mean that is corruption? So the context is different. And you find that many Asian research in Mayer's 2006 discovered that Asian researchers lack confidence. We like to borrow from the particular journals. Yes, that's fine. But then we got to discover something new. We have to break all the norms and say, look, there's something new. Let me give you another example. In my research in quantum governance, I did a paper and it was published in Scopus. Quantum governance. And when I started to have this, many learned people were telling me, no, this is wrong. You cannot. How can you say quantum governance? But then look, where the professor from the West is saying, you guys say okay. When I'm doing, you say no, it's not okay. You see? Why? We don't have the confidence in our researchers. And finally, it was published. It was published after 4 years. Quantum governance in a Scopus journal. I thank God for that. And you notice that there are also other areas of activities. Like, for example, overwhelming with other non-research based activities. For example, we are so overwhelmed with, I'm not saying teaching is wrong, but fine, you can be overwhelmed with teaching. Maybe some people will say, look, I'm not into research. I only want to teach. Well and good. But what about those who want to do research? See, are they the ecosystem to support? Is there tangible goals? I want to see, for example, publication. And sometimes publication may not happen so fast, because sometimes the reviewers take time, and sometimes you may be rejected in one journal. You got to look for another journal, right? And what are the areas of you being rejected? Sometimes they don't tell you very clearly. Some reviewers tell you very clearly. So when they tell very clearly, at least you can resubmit to the same journal. But if they don't tell you clearly, then how do you know where you are wrong? And some journals are very particular on cosmetic work, meaning that you have to make sure that the alignment is correct, make sure. Well, I agree on that. But you and I know as researchers, and even as PhD students, how much time we spend on realignment. How much time we spend on changing A4 kind of text into B5. It takes a lot of time. And every of your table starts running, and you have to realign, and you got to sit down. Sometimes you spend days, and you and I know this is, yes, I do understand that cosmetic is important. Make sure your presentation is nice and right, good. But then each requirement of each journal is different. Some will say, I want font size number 10, but you have done font size number 12. Yes, you can change everything, but when you change everything, your alignment changes, your table changes. Yes, you said, no, this is the requirement. But the question is, sometimes I always debate this. Is the journal focusing on cosmetic, or is the journal focusing on content? I do understand there should be a conformity. I do understand there must be a streamlining. Yes, but make it to the minimum. Right? Make it, just tell them, okay, you change the size, font size to 10 from 12, fine, but not into B5. And there are also some journals, there's limitations, There's one journal that says you cannot exceed 8,000 words. But my article is already 10,500 words. So try to streamline. You see, sometimes for us, especially when we come to our part of the world, to be very honest, English language is not the first language. So for us to rephrase things from 10,000 words to 8,000 words, it's a battle. And you and I know that. It's a battle. So some journalists will say, look, on 8,000. I do understand where they're coming from, because they don't want to clog their database. So if every article is only 5 pages or 6 pages, is fine. But then sometimes we find it difficult to concise, because sometimes the meaning could be different when you start to concise. So these are the challenges. And you find that there's aimless approach to fulfill the academic ranking, because everyone is so interested in academic ranking under the QS or Times Higher Education ranking. So everybody is joining the bandwagon and say, let's publish and publish and publish, and so that we can increase in ranking. But what's the point of publishing if your research doesn't make sense to the community? It doesn't bless the community you are in. It has to be an applied research. For example, you want to improve the irrigation of the agriculture, the farmers in your area, perhaps in Palembang. So therefore, your research must address the need to change the irrigation methodology. So it must bear fruit. So that is what you mean by applied research. So applied research makes more sense. Why? Because it's an ongoing thing and is helping the community. And that is important so that the community will appreciate research. So when the community appreciates research, they will support research and they will support the institution. And institutions become famous. So you see, there is a win-win situation. A win-win situation. And I'm so happy now. I've attended a seminar last November before the COVID in Bali, Indonesia. And I was told that many Indonesian universities now are excited over research, which is wonderful. This is a very good news. So it's important. Why? Because it will increase the quality of your universities, increase the quality of your students, and also contribute to your GDP growth. That's important. That is important. It will help in the GDP growth of your nation. And that is part of nation building, right? That is part of nation building. Because education is one of the most powerful way to bring anybody out of poverty, right? Then coming back to my slide again, methodological rigor seems to be emphasized. So yes, methodological rigor. What do you mean by that? I'm doing for example, a mixed method, which is good. I shared in the first session both quantity and qualitative method, which is wonderful. But then the most important is whether your research is relevant to the community, relevant to the society. Of course, you may say, look, I'm doing the impact on CSR on profitability. How do I, what do I mean by saying that it is relevant? Now, whether your CSR activities in your research has actually contributed by the companies in terms of their bottom line, has it contributed towards profitability? If not, what are you suggesting in your research? How can companies now tie up CSR activity with the bottom line? I give a good example. Colgate. I'm sure you know there is Colgate also in Indonesia. Colgate goes around to the primary and secondary school on oral hygiene, how to brush your teeth and things like that. They sponsor and all that. So what are they doing? They are creating a twofold. What fold? Number one, they are creating CSR activity that will contribute to a long-term profitability. Why? Because it will be buried in the subconscious mind of these children that the moment you look at brushing your teeth, you're looking at Colgate. So no other brand comes into their mind. So what happened? When they go out to work later, it is buried in their subconscious mind, they'll use Colgate. So long-term profitability. Number two, sustainability. Right, sustainability. That means Colgate is looking that they will be around for many, many, many more years. So sustainability, why there'll be a continuous generation of revenue. So therefore, you notice that it has become more relevant. So when you do any study, it must be relevant, yeah. Especially in social science, in management, in accounting, it must be relevant. There's another research. I do not know whether you can do this research on whether the retained profits in public listed companies, are they really retained earnings or are they just book figures? Sometimes I notice that companies are cutting wages during this COVID. But the next question I always wonder is that what about the retained earnings that you have earned over the years? That means to say, is that retained earnings only a book balance? Today, don't you have it in cash or in any other form of assets? So these are the research areas that will help, so that, for example, sometimes companies come to me for some advice, and they said, look, what can I do? So the most important thing that I always say is, whichever revenue, even that is before COVID, in any revenue that you earn, set aside a percentage in savings. Why? Because you never know on a rainy day you will get. And these companies, some of them listen, some of them don't listen. But now COVID came in, and now those companies who have some kind of savings every transaction that they did benefited from this COVID, that they need not retrench their staff. They can go through these 3 or 4 months by paying salary. And isn't that wonderful? Because you have set aside. So therefore, it must, whatever that you do, it must be relevant to the community. Right. Right. Some of the change of mindset, some of the researchers are caught in a trap. Right. You may say, look, local relevance, is it really necessary, or will anyone really bother to read my article? It doesn't matter. You know why? Because it has, in one way or rather, it will help the community. If you were to publicize it, to say you have done this research, that's where institutions play a role, where they can publish their findings and share to the community. And of course, ethical committee is important. Some institutions do not have an ethical committee. What do I mean by ethical committee? I mean that when you do a research proposal, it must be vetted by a ethical committee, where you're looking at, is your data collection on an ethical manner? Is there independence in your data collection? In your analysis, is there unbiasedness? And is it beneficial to the community? So when you have an ethical approval within your institution, it helps in the quality of your research. That means you can write in your paper that this has been sanctioned by the ethical committee of your university. So that is important, right? That is important. Of course, that's a way where you have to have a framework, ethical framework. Submission must be done before the data collection, right? All this has to be done only after ethical approval. You need to do your data collection. If the ethical committee is not happy, then you got to redo your proposal. Yeah. So what is required? Bring back relevance. Bring back relevance. Bring back relevance. For example, if a city want to build an LRT, right, the train service within the city, you're doing a research. What is the impact of the train in terms of ecological impact, in terms of space, in terms of noise pollution, right? So you are doing this research, and this research will be helpful. Why? Because is it necessary to build a train service within the city, or can the money be used to extend the roads, or the money can be used to deeper the drains so that there will be less of flood during rainy season? So this will give you relevance of your research, right? Nation building research. Today, in fact, every nation needs nation building. Every nation, especially now with COVID. In my next lecture in the afternoon, I'm going to address on the areas of COVID-19. And this such kind of research towards culture, sensitivity towards culture, towards the needs of economic sectors and non-economic sectors is crucial. A good example, some of them are doing research on domestic violence during COVID. You know, people are staying at home and working. There is domestic violence. In some parts of the world, it is increasing. So what does that mean? What does that mean to society? What does that mean to the impact on their children? So all this has devastating impact, and research will help to solve this. Research will help to what are the ways to mitigate. Not necessarily, maybe you can't solve 100%, but research will help to mitigate. And especially social science and finance and management, you got to contextualize to local scenarios that is relevant to your area, to your area, to your culture, to your particular community. It must bless the community. It must be something abstract. You know, you're doing a research on your own, and it doesn't really, unless of course that is you're looking at a research that is a theoretical debate. For example, whether you're looking at area of where you're using a traditional approach, which is 450 years old, Newtonian approach in solving a problem. Are you going to use new sciences, which involve chaos theory, quantum science, right? Where you are looking at to solve an issue. So that kind of abstract kind of research, of course, there's very few, but that it debates on the theoretical evidence. Like there's a lot of research now whether agency theory is supposed to be used in corporates. Now they found out that agency theory is not so relevant after all. It was founded in 1932 and made famous in 1974 by Jenkins and Merkling. It was earlier founded by Berlin Means in 1932. So you notice that agency theory is not that relevant after all. So what theory then we can use for corporate structure? So these are all contextualized within a particular nation. For example, in Japan, they prefer to use stewardship theory rather than agency theory because they're contextualized within the Japanese culture. Whereas in Europe, in Germany especially, they prefer to use stakeholders theory, right, rather than agency theory. So if we got to find relevance, but the problem in Asia as a whole is that we lack the resources to sit down and think. We lack the resources. We are so eager to embrace everything and just adopt it, rather than looking at the relevance in our context. In our context, right? For example, there's now a new wave on the areas of, for example, on the robotics. Now everyone is looking at robotics. So what happened? Companies are just adopting robotics and things like that. But you must understand the context. You cannot institute robotics, and your research on robotics will be aimless if there is high unemployment. You got to address the social aspect first to create jobs for employment. You cannot use robotics when your unemployment is high. It further will aggravate unemployment. And that will be social problems. And the structure of PhD programs have to be revisited. The structure of PhD programs has to be revisited. I think, in my opinion, this is my opinion. Of course, some people may dispute that, but my opinion, it must be every PhD research must bring relevance to the community. If it doesn't bring relevance, then it's very sad. Why? Because we got to address the need. We got to address the need of today. For example, why is young people today fearful in taking specialization in accounting? Why are they fearful in taking specialization in accounting? There is a research going on. Why? Are you looking at the millennial mindset? Because accounting is something very methodological, is very, it's very squarish, these are the rules in accounting. Or is the millennium behavior now much more flamboyant? They want to be they want to seek more freedom. They want to be flexible. So then what is the reason why many young people are not taking accounting as their specialization in many parts of Asia? So these are the relevance kind of PhD that we're looking at. And developing indigenous discourse on organizational phenomena. That means to look at why is the behavior of certain companies in Indonesia behaving differently, for example. Why is certain industries are thriving in Indonesia compared to other countries in Asia? So these are bringing relevance. It means there's something that these companies have that is not really tapped by other countries in Asia. And you need to have a holistic and rigor between theory and organizational realities. You can't ask the organization to turn into high technology overnight. It doesn't happen. Why? Because one important factor is the cost, and of course you're going to retrain their staff. And at the same time, what benefit does it bring to the organization? Does it help in the bottom line? Because every organization is looking at profitability. But the next question is, should profitability be the pinnacle or the most important thing in an organization? In my research, I begin to go back and find, what do we mean by corporation? Who started this idea of company? Who started this idea of company? And I went back and I noticed something. I went back to find the word called, what is corporation? Corporation is a Latin word, came from the word corpus. Corpus means unity, togetherness. And in the 15th century and 16th century, corporation was not built or formed because of profitability. It was formed because of social advantage. For example, to build a railroad, right? Railroad. So a few families who are well-to-do come together, form this corporation and build the railroad and contribute this railroad to the government. That's the reason sometimes you have names, Mr. Smith Foundation or the Rockefeller Foundation, because these are basically the social entrepreneur. So profit was not their motive. Of course, they need to earn something for them to cover their costs, fine. But profit was not their motive. Their motive was social well-being. That's the reason the word corpus is used. Corpus means togetherness. But what happened? Capitalism came into it. Not to say capitalism is wrong. We all benefited from capitalism. But capitalism was stretched until greed came into play. Why not we increase profit? So everything was very much towards the shareholder. You know, I was teaching in one particular class and I was sharing on two philosophies that we follow broadly: the shareholders' wealth maximization and the corporate wealth maximization theory. What do I mean by the shareholders' wealth maximization theory? It is a theory where shareholders only want dividends. If you don't pay dividend, they will sell their shares. So it's a shareholder wealth maximization theory where Asian countries adopt. Nothing wrong with that. I'm not saying it's wrong, nothing wrong. This is how we perceive, right? Our shareholders want the money now. Give me the money now. Give me the dividends now. That's what the shareholders are saying. Give them the money now. So they don't want to wait. Give me the dividend now. That's what shareholders say. Whereas the other part of the world, they follow the corporate wealth maximization theory, which means they pay less dividend, but more on book value. That's the reason why you find that shares, some of the shares is very high in book value. Why? Because they manage their retained earnings rather than distribute their earnings. Right. So sometimes you find that the particular approach is different. That's the reason why many Asian countries, because they distribute much of their earnings in dividend, they have very little retained earnings. That's where their gearing level is high, their debt level is high compared to our Western counterpart. Right. And furthermore, the cost of debt in Asia is lesser than the cost of debt in Western world. So that's the reason why many borrowings are happening in this part of the world. And of course, there must be an intellectual arbitrage, right? By Van der Ven and Johnson. What do you mean by intellectual arbitrage? That means there must be a contribution. Your research must contribute something new, not to re-emphasize what is being researched, but something new. Relevance, collaboration. This is important. This is where many Asian universities are missing out. And in those Japan and Korea and Singapore and all, they are doing very well when it comes to collaboration. And this is where universities must collaborate. And this happens to most of the Asian countries. And this is what I'm very sad about. Why? Because companies are supposed to, or universities are supposed to collaborate with companies to help in research. That means in case study findings. For example, if you are running a company and you want to increase your productivity, you call in this university, please help me in doing this research to increase my productivity level. The period is 6 months, right? So this also gives you the avenue for funding. Not only that, but it helps the company to improve. And the company don't have to set aside their resources, but they need to give the leeway for the university students under the guidance of their professors to help them to do this research. This will create better harmony. This will create better understanding and better usefulness. And you will appreciate the research because the research is an applied research, right? Training in terms of research. What sort of training? Identifying the right methodology, for example, identify the right topic, identify the problem statement. I was just sharing in the previous session just now. When you identify the problem statement, you must make sure you back it up with proper readings, with readings that will address and build the momentum to say that you have actually done a good job in identifying the gap. Right. And of course, the interdependence of theories. And also, I think that your university Sriwijaya has an internal journal. So make use of this publish in the internal journal. So the more you publish, the scale or the ranking of your journal will increase. Ranking of your journal will increase. So that is important, like to go into Scopus journal and all that. And it is so important. The moment you have an in-house journal, that is very, very beneficial, right? And I would love to contribute to your in-house journal in any way whatsoever. And this is important. Why? It increases the level of your university. And be specific in your research. The narrower the better. Be specific in your research. Don't make it too broad. Yes, you can't solve the whole world problem. You can't solve the whole of Indonesia's problem. You can't solve the whole of Malaysian problem. You can't solve the whole of ASEAN problem. But you can solve one small little bit, one small area. And furthermore, in your PhD, you have a time limit. So you can't take too long. Right? Clear objectives. Clear objectives. Your objectives must be clear. Why? Because your findings will address your research question. Your research question will address your research objective, and your research objective will address your problem statement. Let me repeat that. Your findings will address your research question. Your research question will address your research objective. Your research objective will address your gap. And you got to read extensively. And of course, initially, try to get your in-house professors and lecturers or your peers to listen to your presentation. So they will give you some points. Or if you can have any conference, like nowadays you have a lot of webinar conference, try to present there. Why? Because you'll get feedback, and that is important. Feedbacks are always important. Yes, sometimes feedbacks are very hurting, but feedbacks are very important, because feedbacks gives you areas for you to improve. And always identify the guru in your area, right? The guru in your area, like management guru Peter Senge of Harvard Business School or Harvard University. He is the guru of management. So once you identify the guru, try to write to the guru. Sometimes the gurus are so busy. Try to write to them and share your ideas. So they may give you, those who want to reply, they will reply. And they may give you, because they are very busy people, they may give you something. So at least that will give you an idea. And that is important. Share. Don't feel afraid. You see, the problem is that many of our, I don't blame you, because I was like that myself initially. I was very shy. I don't like to be, to given any feedback. But later I begin to change. I said, look, the more feedback, the better. right? The more criticism, the better. So I can improve. And try to publish your conceptual paper, yeah? Just your idea. Try to, there are journals that can receive conceptual paper. And your in-house journal is a very good avenue, right? Study the methodologies. Right. Sample size must be appropriate. I was just giving an example just now in the earlier slide. If it's a large sample, then at least you're looking at 1% or 0.25%, right? Something like that. So you must have a proper sample size, right? Use a robust mechanism for methodology. A mixed method is a very welcome method during this part of the world or during this season. Why? Because you are embracing quantity and quality. You're embracing quantity and quality. Your particular research becomes very robust. I give you an example. I just completed writing with one particular researcher. Me and she researched on the integrated reporting. So not only that, we used secondary data for 50 top listed companies in Malaysian stock exchange, but we also interviewed the auditors who are auditing these top companies on integrated reporting. And now is the IR world, is financial reporting, sustainable reporting, and now integrated reporting. So we found that the particular research was very robust. It gave us a lot of new inputs, and that is important. And that is important. Right, new findings, yeah? Of course, you got to follow the format of the journal. Yes, sometimes it's very painful. Each journal will have different format. And focus on rising journals. What I mean by rising journals? That means journals that are, you see there's a lot of people submitting. You can see from the H index. You can see that there are many people that are submitting, many researchers are submitting papers. So these are rising. And please support your local journal. That means your in-house University Sri Vijaya's journal. Please support that. Please put in your articles there, right? So that it will also help the university and also increase your ranking of the university and the journal. So please make sure that you make sure every concept that you have, write something and with proper evidence and proper conceptual ideas. And this will help you in your writing skill, will also help you in getting a good feedback. Do not submit the same article then to two or more journals. You're not supposed to do that. That is unethical. So therefore, you got to submit one article per one journal. If the journal rejects, then you can submit to another journal. You can't submit to a few journals at one time. That is unethical, right? Do not fear rejection. Check, of course, citation. I know this is something very common, but let me tell you, there's a lot of errors that PhD student makes as well, where there is citation, but referencing is missing, right? Now, that's one thing that I want to share with you before I close. Deep thinking. You see, when there is an information overload, we all now have a lot of information. You just go to Mr. Google, you can find a lot of information. WhatsApp, WeChat, so many platforms to get information. Even our children today, even if you are married, even your 5-year-old child will know how to Google, how to tap the phone. That means there's information overload. When there's information overload, thinking becomes very shallow. Thinking becomes very, very shallow. So therefore, you find that when there is too much of information, you don't think, you just go to the Google, Mr. Google, and you just tap and you get information. What is the detrimental of it? The detrimental of it, we do not develop our neurological advancement. We do not develop our neurological advancement, and we find that it's so, we don't dive into the thinking pattern. So deep thinking is talking within your soul. It means, what do I mean? It means, I remember the time when I was doing my research on corporate governance. I used to think, I used to just walk around in the middle of the night. I used to think now, what is the issue Why are there so many corporate failures when there is proper governance structure? We have all the laws, we have all the rules and regulation, but why are there corporate bankruptcy? Why are there corporate failures? Why? There must be something beyond. Albert Einstein said, if you want to address something, you got to look at the higher level to address what is wrong. Then I begin to realize it is the practicality of exercising governance. Secondly, is the capitalistic mindset. The mindset that capitalism has been stretched to increase profitability at any expense. I remember I was invited to a launch of a condominium, and I was so excited. So I went to the launch, and when I entered the launch, they said, there's a banner, a big banner. We are going green. So I asked the organizer, why are you saying this banner going green? No, we want each household to plant one tree. So how many households are there? 500. So we can have 500 trees. Then I asked this question. You mean to tell me you have cut down 3,000 trees and only replanted 500 trees? And you call this going green? It doesn't make sense, isn't it? It doesn't make sense. You have slaughtered 3,000 trees to build a condominium, and now you're going to replant 500 trees saying that, oh, we are going green. That is hypocrisy. That is not really sustainable practice. So you got to think deep on each area. When you think deep, you find that you'll be able to appreciate the flow of thoughts. You'll be able to appreciate your research, and your research becomes much more of higher quality. The most common barrier is distraction. We have a lot of distraction, right? You know, even for us to sit down quietly, so we have so many times, so many WhatsApp message we receive. So sometimes it's good to switch off the phone and start thinking about your research. I used to do that. I stopped. I just switch off my phone, and I would just go to a quiet place and think deeply on your research topic. Dive into that. Dive into why? Because you want quality research. And quality research comes about deep thinking, yeah? And you as PhD students, you got to think deeply. Deeply. How deep? The deeper, the better. Right. So with this, I'd like to end. Thank you very much. And my email and my email contact is there. And now I'd like to open the floor to questions. Please do not feel shy to ask questions. I'm more than happy. As I said, I'm not an expert, but I'm willing to share. Yeah, I'm willing to share. So please ask as many questions as you want. And over to you, Dr. Muhammad Ishan. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much for Dr. Benedict. What a great topic. What a great presentation. I'm sure all participants want to ask a question to discuss with us. One word, one sentence that I can take from your work. We must think deeply for the PhD degree. I think it's most important thing. I will open for the discussion forum. For the participant who want to ask a question, you can write in the chat room or raise hand in the Zoom platform. Is there any question?
I have a question.
Yes, okay. Okay, Mr. Barudin.
Okay, thank you very much. Dear Dr. Benedict, thank you very much for the very interesting topic today. As you already explained to us, so many problems actually for us to publish the article, especially to journal with the what you call this, the reputable journal. No, I do agree with what you explained before. As you already explained to us, so many problems actually for us to publish the article, especially to journal with the what you call this, the reputable journal. you explained before. I do agree with I do agree with what you explained before. So always so many problems we are looking for us.
Sorry, can you please repeat your question? Sorry, can you repeat the question?
Mr. Baharudin, can you repeat the question?
Okay. The voice is not. Why the?
Can you write in the chat
What
box?
happened with this?
Can
It's
you
not
write in
clear.
the chat box? You can write in the chat box.
Maybe you can write in the chat room for Mr. Baharudin.
Okay.
I will read your question for Dr. Benedict.
Okay.
Okay, for Mr. Baharudin, you maybe you can write your question in the chat room to make it clear to our speaker. Okay. Yes. While we're waiting the question for Mr. Baharudin, maybe the participant has any question?
As I know to publish. As I know to publish. As I know to publish.
Okay, maybe we give to Mrs. Amalia first before Mr. Baharudin.
Mr. Iksan,
Mrs.
Mr.
Amalia.
Iksan, Mr. Iksan,
Yes.
sorry, Dr. Iksan.
Yes.
Would you like to
Yes.
to mute Mr. Baharudin, the
Okay.
speaker,
Okay.
because
Mr. Baharudin. Okay. Okay. Maybe for the Mrs. Amalia first, you can ask directly to our speaker. Yes. For Mrs. Amalia, the time is yours to ask a question directly to our speaker, the Dr. Benedict. You can unmute, Mrs. Amalia. Okay. Or maybe I will read your question. Okay. Maybe I will help to read your question to Dr. Benedict. Dr. Benedict, there is a question from Mrs. Amalia. Mr. Benedict, how to find novelty research in management science? Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. You have to search for in top journals like Emerald publication, Springer, right? These are some top journals, and like for example, there is management science letters as well. You can search that as well. So these are good journals that you can refer to. Yeah. So and you do have some journals by Oxford University, and also some journal houses by Cambridge, right? And of course, you have Harvard Business Review, HBR. So that is another very good one. So you can search that. Yeah, I hope I've answered your question. Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you so much for Dr. Benedict. We move to the question from Mr. Harry Setiawan. Maybe Mr. Harry Setiawan, you want to ask directly to our speaker? The time is yours. You can unmute your sound. Mr. Harry Setiawan?
Okay, thank you for my time. I want to ask about what your research interest, Mr. Benedict.
Yeah, I think just now Dr. Ishan has already mentioned my areas is basically finance, management, corporate governance, sustainability, and that has been, and also accounting. So that has been my research now, and I would now I'm going into more into sustainability kind of research. Yeah. Yes. I hope I've answered your question.
Mr. Benedict, can you give a lot of trick how to write down paper that will be accepted by Scopus like that?
Okay, thank you. There's no tricks actually. There's no tricks, but what they are looking at is your problem statement must be very clear. Secondly, what they are looking at, there must be an intellectual discourse. That means your critical review of your literature must be very firm. There must be a critical review of your literature. Thirdly, they want a robust kind of methodology that will broaden the impact of your findings. Not only you solve or you address your gap, but also you will be able to contribute something new or a variety of new ideas from your research to the body of knowledge. That's what they're looking at. So they are very, let me repeat that. Your problem statement. Number two, your critical review of the literature, and also your methodology of going about, and of course, your analysis, whether is it robust enough, and the findings. So it must contribute something new to the body of knowledge, right? So that is what they are looking at.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Benedict.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you for Mr. Heri Setiawan. Maybe for the next, for Mrs. Emilia Yuniarti, yes, you can ask in Indonesian, and I will help you to translate to Mr. Dr. Benedict. To Dr. Emilia. To Mrs. Emilia, you can ask directly to our speaker in Indonesian, and we will translate. Will help to translate to English. Okay, Mrs. Emilia, Emilia Yuniarti, you can unmute your sound. Oh, okay, later. Okay. Maybe for the Mr. Baharudin, I will read your question. Have you read question to our speaker? As I know, to publish an article to reputable journal, we need to spend more money to journal publisher. This is one problem for us. What is your opinion regarding this issue? This is the question from Mr. Baharudin to Dr. Benedict.
Yeah, thank you very much. Now, this is a common challenge. However, there are many journals that you do not have to pay at all. There are many journals. So the reason why these journals are asking for payment is because of the background work, because there are many of them, sometimes these journals, they want to maintain the quality. The writers are having a lot of grammatical errors. And you find that that's the reason why they charge to help to address these grammatical errors. And at the same time also, they help in the alignments and all that. But they won't interfere in your research findings and things like that. So you just want to make sure it is properly within the context of cosmetics. But having said that, there are many journals out there that do not require any payment. So please search. There are many, like for example, Emerald Journal, for example, Springer journals, for example, JSTOR journals. They do not require any payment, right? So, but then they also look at quality, yeah. So they must make sure that you adhere to their particular requirements. So I hope I have answered your question. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you very much for Dr. Benedict and Mr. Baharudin. We move to the other question from Mr. Syarif Usman. You can ask directly to our speaker, Mister. You can unmute your sound, your speaker. Okay, for Mr. Syarif Usman, you can unmute your speaker and ask directly to our speaker. Mr. Syarif Usman, are you there? Or you can write your question in the chat room. We will read it for you. Mr. Syarif Usman. Okay, or maybe the other participant. Is there any question?
Thank you, Mr. Ihsan.
Okay, Mr. Syarif Usman. Okay.
Thank you for Mr. Benedict, Dr. Benedict. I want to ask about you tell about the ethical committee. The ethical committee. In what organization we must have and need the ethical committee? In university or in faculty? The second question is what is the main job or the main function from the ethical committee? And the third, I asked about can the ethical committee change the title or the topic of the research, or only give recommendation for referring before the journal to publish? Only that. Thank you, Mr. Benedict.
Thank you very much, Mr. Sharif. Thank you so much for the question. Now, ethical committee is from the university's level. It's from the university's level. Normally, it does not come from the faculty, because the ethical committee looks and oversees the entire university. Because in the university, there are many faculties. So the ethical committees looks at the entire university, and it must come from the university's perspective. Now, and the function of this ethical committee is basically to review every research, both in the science field and the non-science field, management, accounting, finance, everything. So their job is to review whether it fulfills the standards of the university, and also does it fulfill international standards to a certain extent, right? So they will look at areas like, for example, it can be a scientific kind of research. They look at who are your samples, and then did you get consent from your samples? Did you guys consent from the people? If the samples are people, did you get consent? Is there any harmful effect by doing your research? Is there any negative consequences to the community? So all this they will look at, and they will read through your entire conceptual paper. This happens before your data collection, before you publish in journals, before, so that the articles will be properly vetted to say that it has fulfilled the ethical requirements of the university, and also any international standards that the ethical committee wants to adopt, which is very important because it will increase the quality of your paper. It will increase the quality of your university as a whole. So it's very, very important. And then the next question you ask is that whether the article they can change the topic. They would not change the topic, but they will recommend certain actions to be done. And they will recommend for you to resubmit to the ethical committee before you collect your data. That means even before your analysis. So the ethical committee has the right to recommend. They cannot change, but they will recommend. Right? So all this is important because you are doing a research to help or to help the society or the community. So it must go through a proper standardization. Yeah. So that is crucial. Okay. Thank you. Thank you. I hope I've answered your question, Mr. Sharif. Thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Benedict.
Thank you. Thank you so much to Dr. Benedict and Mr. Sharif Usman. Okay, it's time for Mr. Baharudin.
Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Iksan.
Okay, thank you.
Sorry, before there is a problem with my internet connection. Okay, Dr. Benedict, I have a question for you. Thank you very much first for your very nice, very interesting topic today. My question, as your experience, what is the main problem? Why an article mostly rejected by the publisher? Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you so much for asking the question. The most is because of the robustness of the methodology and also the impact of the finding. Many students can do the critical review part of the literature. That is not a problem. They can identify the gap. That is not a problem. But when it comes to the robustness of the methodology used, sometimes it is very shallow. And sometimes, yes, you did find the findings did address the problem gap, but then what new? It doesn't really expound the newness that is brought into the picture. And something new is important. Like, for example, I was sharing just now, I was doing a research on blended learning in our university. What we do in our college, we teach the students. At the same time, we'll introduce a lot of tools, software tools to enhance learning. For example, Kahoot, for example, polls, for example, videos, where we enhance learning. So we want to know, over the last 3 years, we've been doing that. Is it effective? Are students happy in using that? So when we did the survey, yes, we knew that the students are happy because 85% of the findings noted among 747 students, 85% says they are happy with using blended tools. It helps them in their learning. But I was not eager on that finding because I know it is in line with any other finding, but I'm more interested in something new. So I dive into the 15% of that says that they are not happy. What areas are they not happy? Then I begin to realize that it is areas where some of the lecturers do not explain after the video what is going on. Some of them are repeating their tools, so much so students are bored. Some of them are just taking videos from YouTube, not realizing that only half of it is relevant, the other half is not relevant. So therefore, this gives a good opportunity for us to improve. So what we do self-video, right? And we find that students are very much comfortable. We do not use too often certain gamification tools. We use a few here and there, and we explain things properly so that now we're able to address that 15%. And that is something new. So something new is important. That is what top journalists are looking at. And especially if it's applied research, that is something beneficial to the community where you are at. That is important. I hope I've answered your question. Thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you so much for Mr. Baharudin. And I will continue to Mrs. Mutiara Maimunah, that I will help you to read the question. To Dr. Benedict, what caused the main failure of our article not being accepted in the Scopus indexed journal?
Yeah, I
This
think
is the question.
I've answered that question by just now. Somebody else asked the same question. It is basically your areas where sometimes problem statements are weak. Sometimes it is not critically reviewed in the literature part. But most of all is the methodology is not robust enough, and the findings does not contribute something new. Right, so that is an issue. So that's the reason why we got to fine tune all that, and it is important. Normally, what happens is that, let me give you another point. Normally, in universities, you have a body within the universities comprising of various professors that will evaluate the particular article before sending it for publication. And I know some universities have that. It is a service within the university, and there's no extra charge for the student. So it is part of the academic duty, which is, I feel, is very important and notable, that this kind of committee will help to increase, because sometimes students, the way they write, and furthermore, English is not our main language in many parts of this world, and I'm sure you will agree with me. So sometimes the way we write could be a bit, different. So this committee will help to address, and they will come back to the student and say, look, you have to amend this, you got to amend this, you got to amend this, so that it will help. And there are also some bodies or some departments in the university that help to source this reputable journal to help the student to publish in reputable journal. I know some universities do that. And that is important. All these are the research support, not like just leaving you in the wet rain and said, look, you somehow publish yourself, you somehow do everything yourself. That is not the right attitude. The right attitude to have this for a research support. Then researchers are encouraged. PhD students, master's students are encouraged. They know that where they went wrong. They know how to consult, but the committee would not, that this particular would not dispute your findings, but they will see how you write so that you can improve and become better quality, because there's always check and balance. They're not there to guide you or so to say that your research is wrong or right. No, they are looking at the grammatical, they're looking at the flow of thoughts, and that is important. And I hope if your university do not have that, they should start having such a department to help students, right? And that's important. That is very important, so that your quality, so you know where your mistakes is. Rather than waiting for the journal to come back to you, you have an internal feedback. So at least you know now when you submit to a journal, it will definitely be accepted. Okay, I know that means pooling of resources. Sometimes they say, oh, I got no our universities they don't have enough of resources, all can, yes, but then excuses can be excuses, but we need to address that, right? We need to address, right? So I hope I've answered the question. Thank you very much of giving me this opportunity.
Okay, thank you so much. For the next question, we will give opportunity to Mrs. Evidian Kartikasari. You can unmute your sound, Mrs. Evidian, and deliver the question directly to Dr. Benedict. Mrs. Evidian. Mrs. Evidian Kartikasari. You can unmute. Okay. Mrs. Evidian, you can deliver your question directly to our speaker. Mrs. Evidian, the time is yours. Hello, Mrs. Evidian. Or I will read your question. Okay. Okay, maybe I will read your question. A question from the Mrs. Evidian Kartikasari, Doctor. Dr. Benedict, would you please to explain us what is the criteria a good novelty which will be contribute to the body of the knowledge? Thank you.
Yes, thank you. Thank you very much. That would depend on which area are you looking at. What area are you looking at? Are you looking at area of management? Which area in management? Management itself, there's very broad areas. And what, in terms of finance, what area are you looking at? So that will depend on the particular journals that you are referring to. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Okay. Okay. Thank you very much. For Mr. Baharudin, do you want to ask another question to our speaker? Please,
Excuse me, once more,
okay.
Mr. Benedict, I was ask you.
Yes. Go
Okay,
first.
thank you. Okay, thank you. My interest research is about tourism marketing management. Could you give some of your partner in university that their research is interested with me? Join research. Thank you.
Yes. Now, you are doing research on tourism marketing. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes. So,
okay.
So now your research, you want to collaborate with somebody.
Okay, in your university.
Yeah, but the thing is that it is important for you to know which area of tourism marketing are you addressing.
Yeah.
So what is the area?
About customer tourism behavior.
Yeah. Tourism behavior,
Tourism
post-COVID or pre-COVID or during COVID?
Pre and post-COVID.
Okay. So have you read enough journals?
Excuse me?
Have you read enough journals?
Yeah, a lot of journal about marketing tourism I read.
So what did you gather from these readings?
Pardon?
What did you summarize from these readings of tourism marketing that you have read?
I think the behavior from east and west is very different about the behavior about to visit a destination.
Okay. And have you discussed this matter with your supervisor?
Yeah. Right now, I make a proposal for my dissertation.
Yes. So I would encourage you to seek the advice of your supervisor so that he can guide you in this area. Because what you have read will give you a broad understanding. And most important, you got to also read journals from Indonesia on tourism marketing. Because now there is a paradigm shift in tourism marketing. Because of this COVID, now people are very hesitant to come over. So what sort of approach are you looking at? Now, tourism can be divided into so many areas. Number one, there is medical tourism. There is ecological tourism. There is sports tourism. There is sustainable tourism. That is forestry tourism. There is education tourism. So the breadth of tourism marketing is so huge. So you got to now analyze which area are you looking at, and what are the journals that talks to you on these areas of tourism marketing. Because the moment you market medical tourism is different from you market sports tourism. It is different if you market sustainable tourism practices. It's different when you look at tourism involving the forestry. It's different when you look at tourism in terms of education. So which area are you looking at? And what are the novel journals in this?
Actually, my interest in culinary tourism.
Culinary tourism. Now, tourism. Now, you must also take into account when you talk about culinary tourism. In other words, what are the factors that influence culinary tourism? And also, you have to look at what are the novel journals that talks about culinary tourism within Indonesia and also elsewhere. So that will give you a good breadth of knowledge, and you'll be able to address the gap, right, on culinary. What is problem in the culinary tourism that you are addressing? That is crucial. What is the problem?
Thank you.
The gap? Yeah.
The gap is, I think,
sorry?
In a lot of paper that I read, a lot of discuss about attachment, involvement, tourism in the culinary destination.
Yeah, so what is the gap that you are addressing? What is the gap?
Destination image is not related with the tourism loyalty.
Right. So I'm sure your supervisor is able to advise you, right? So please refer to your supervisor. I'm sure he'll be able to help you in this area. Right. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Benedict. Thank you.
Thank you for Mr. Heristiawan. Maybe for the next question, Mr. Baharudin, you want to ask another question? Deliver another question to our speaker. You can unmute your sound.
Yeah.
So, Mr. Baharudin.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Ihsan.
Okay.
One more question, Dr. Benedict. My question is maybe a little bit out of our topic today, but it is still related to regarding how to publish our article. As I got information that when we want to publish our article, especially to reputable publisher, we need to spend more money to publish that our article. Is that true, this issue? Maybe you have experience, or maybe you can give the explanation to us, because in outside there, many are my friend or like a lecturer, they spend more money to publish their article. Thank you.
I think I've already answered that question. Actually, there are so many journals out there that do not charge any money. So please look at journals like from Emerald, from JSTOR, from Cambridge University, Oxford universities, that they do not charge. But of course, they look at the quality of your article, but they do not charge any money. Right. So look at for those articles. Look for those journals that can that do not charge any money. Right. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you very much. Yeah. Right. Any other questions, please?
Okay, a question from Mr. Welinaelis. Maybe I will read the question for you, Doctor. I'm interested in collaborative research with business companies. Based on your experience, can it done personally between researcher and the enterprise or the company with cost sharing? If it can, how the bureaucracy, the complicated about the bureaucracy, MOU, MOA, or is it right like that?
Okay, thank you very much for your question. This has been a challenge for every collaborative effort. But what is important is that when you represent your university to collaborate, there must be an official letter, right, to the company that you want to collaborate. And then what are the areas that you got to highlight that you can collaborate, you can contribute? What areas? Sometimes the companies don't see that. And companies also look at privacy of data. So when you collaborate, what about the privacy of data? So all these you got to sign in an agreement. Of course, you can look at it as an MOA or an MOU, doesn't matter, but it must be a black and white thing. And secondly, normally we will try to, normally there is a cost sharing, fine, but what area you must identify which area of cost will be borne by the company, which area of costs will be borne by the university. And furthermore, is it within the framework of the university? Sometimes universities is not in the framework, right? They say, sorry, cannot. So is it within the framework, right? Because you are representing the university. And always bring them to visit and let them speak to your faculty, dean and all that, sit down and do a proposal so that the Senate will approve. These are the things that you have to do, right? Because you know what, if you don't do this, then there will be an issue later. And let the Senate approve. And then it is crucial. Why? Because with the moment the collaboration happens, it will bring up, open up different doors. Doors not only for the problem solving for the company, but also employability. The company will appreciate your students getting involved. And when they go for interview, this company will consider them. So you get greater employability. Secondly, you also have internship opportunities. Your students will have internship with that company. So it blows the opportunity so huge. That's the reason why collaboration is so important. For example, the company will be having a problem in cash flow, right? So you get some accounting students, let's do a research. How to improve cash flow of the company, right? So therefore, this will help the company in terms of cash flow to re-strategize, maybe revamping their debtors, maybe talking to the debtors, do a survey, things like that, so that this will create greater cash flow, greater working capital, and then the company will appreciate. And not only that, later your own students would get employed. So that is very useful. That's what I mean by applied research. Applied research. For example, now with COVID, companies are struggling now how to come back to that golden years, how to come back. So your marketing students will help them to re-strategize their marketing. Right now, online marketing is so famous, but is online marketing really useful? You know, one good thing about this online marketing, yes, you have online and everybody's jumping into it, but then there's a data science behind this online. Have you studied the data science? Who are your marketeers? Who are your competitors on that platform? What are they doing that you are not doing? How is your product different from their products? So all these are the data science behind the online platform. It's not like just like posting one of your product and say, okay, let me wait and see whether how many people buys my product. That is not the way. The way to understand the whole online business is the data science. But then entrepreneurs are so eager to jump on online, not studying the data science. So they complain, oh, my product, already 1 month, nobody seems to buy my product. But have you gone through the data science? How many competitors you have? They may be saying buy one, get two free. You are saying only buy one, you know? So there is a different kind of approach here, right? So therefore, collaboration is so important. And the more companies collaborate, the better. I'm sure in around Palembang district, you have so many companies, right? So get them involved. So it's applied research. It makes useful to the community, and your community is blessed. And that's what is important. And when they appreciate your research, the particular publicity for your university is even higher. Right. Thank you. I hope I've answered the question. Thank you. Thank you so much. Yeah.
Okay, thank you to Dr. Benedict. Is there any question from participant? If no other question, attention. Maybe we run out of time, Doctor. What a great discussion. We learn a lot of things from this great discussion. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for all participants and for our distinguished speaker. Thank you for attention. And thank you for the discussion. I am Muhammad Ihsan Hajri. Thank you for attention and sorry for some mistakes. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Please, Mrs. Lina Ramirez Siregar, the time is yours.
Okay. Okay, thank you for ladies and gentlemen. Finally, this is the last session of our webinar today. As host of your webinar today, I want to say thank you so much again to Dr. Benedict for your best presentation and contribution in this international webinar. And also thank you for all participants, for all of our PhD students from Faculty of Economics Universitas Sriwijaya who have participated in this webinar. We hope that all the information that Dr. Benedict have shared today will be useful for all of us, for all of you, for your doctoral program, and good luck for your doctoral program. And we would like to remind you to fill the webinar feedback questionnaire form, and your time is only about 30 minutes after the end of webinar. And once again, I will say thank you very much for Dr. Benedict, for Dr. Muhammad Ihsan Hajri, MM, and for your information. Today, we still have another international webinar third series, with the topics about COVID-19 pandemic, new normal, and its impact to regional economics. And our speakers from Dr. Benedict, and also we have one speaker. He's Mr. Adrianto MA, PhD, from Director for General Transfer Funds, Ministry of Finance, Republic of Indonesia. So I would like to inform you to join us at 1 p.m. today. So that's all for our international webinar number 2. Thank you and see you next time. But don't forget to turn off your webinar cam because we would like to capture your video. We want to make photo documentation. Okay? Wait a minute. Okay, I would like to capture our photo today. For the first, once again, hold on. Once again, please. Okay, that's all. Thank you very much. See you next time. Thank you.
Thank you for the
Have a
time.
nice day.
To
Thank you, Dr. Benedict. Thank you for all participants. Thank you, Dr. Benedict.
thank you, Dr. Iksan.
Thank you, Pak Heri. Sampai ketemu lagi, Pak.